Hi offrailgamer, I hope you don't mind me asking, and I don't want you to think I'm having a go or anything, but can I just check what's up with the podcast schedule? I only ask because I note the last couple of episodes have gone up on a Saturday rather than the usual Thursday time slot, and I wondered if you'd moved it to weekends now. I loved the episodes you did on fishing, and then hats, by the way. You do have a different way of looking at video games. Good luck trying to get through all those games this year as well. Lastly, I see the YouTube's gone a bit quiet for a while now. Hope everything's okay, and I look forward to seeing more content when you upload it. Anyway, that's all for now really. Cheers then, Dunky. Of course, we all know long-standing friend of the show, Dunky the Moose in South Shields there. Yes, sorry for the lack of video content recently. I've just been a busy boy in my day job, and a little fatigued at weekends to make anything I'd be happy uploading. That said, I am minded to start streaming on Twitch or TikTok with hopefully some regularity soon, and I intend to record those streams so I can post the VODs to YouTube. We'll see how that works out. I will say my business schedule has also resulted in me delaying publishing the last couple of podcasts too. I'm planning on getting myself better organised now, as I do want Off the Rails to have a regular-ish upload time frame. I'm at least trying to stick to fortnightly, but it's always better if I can hit that Thursday every couple of weeks. Thank you for writing in, and I hope you're keeping well. Now, Orgonauts, if you'd like to hear me reading your words in a future podcast, there's just 3 things that you need to do. Send an email to offrailgamer@gmail.com, keep it clean, and avoid being mean. I want to hear from you with any comments, questions, feedback, suggestions, anecdotes, jokes. We're a video game podcast most of the time, so I'd appreciate it if it's somewhat on topic, but I don't mind if you take us off the rails a bit too. After all, it is the name of the show. Now, I'd best get my intro music in, I suppose. Let's cue it up. Hello, Orgonauts, and welcome to episode 49 of Off the Rails podcast. Get yourself comfy, because we're going to be here a while. Yes, welcome in friends to Off the Rails episode 49. For anyone who's new around here, I am the offrailgamer and you can find me on YouTube, TikTok and Twitch. Off the Rails is a fortnightly podcast most of the time and goes out on YouTube, Spotify, Castbox and Amazon Music, and you can find every previous episode on each of those platforms. I've also popped links to all my socials in the podcast episode description. We open today's episode with my favourite segment, Listeners' Whispers, which gives you, the listeners at home, the chance to interact with the show. You can write in to offrailgamer@gmail.com with any comments, queries, feedback, suggestions, jokes, anecdotes, recipe ideas. Look, it can be about anything you want really, as long as you follow my 2 golden rules. Please keep your messages clean and try not to be too mean. If you can do that, I might just read your email next episode. Oh, and if you missed the email address, I've popped it in the podcast episode description for you. Lastly, if you like what you hear today, please do share the podcast to anyone you think might also get some joy from it. And if you're feeling super generous, please feel free to give the show a rating. There's no obligation, but it might help us get pushed out there. Now we've done the admin bit, how about I tell you all about the games I've been playing recently in the part of the show I call What I've Been Playing Recently. Well now, first up I did a stream, and it's one I've been talking about doing on the podcast for a little while now. I played Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons on TikTok. Only get this, I got Streamlabs set up to allow me to stream to TikTok from there instead of using the TikTok Live app. But why is that important? Well, although I can download the VOD from the TikTok Live app, it's not in a format that I can edit and upload to YouTube, which is possible in Streamlabs. So, if you head on over to my YouTube channel, you'll be able to find the VOD from my Brothers remake stream. Yes, it was the 2024 Brothers A Tale of Two Sons remake that I played. It hasn't just had a graphic upgrade, they've added a small amount of challenge to some parts of the game, like the bit where you have to sneak past the farm dog in Chapter 1. They've also added some new cutscenes too, but largely it's still the same game. In my opinion, it does some things better than the original game, and it does some things worse, and is overall exactly as good. The reason I was playing the remake is because they've added some new trophies, and you can now earn a platinum trophy on the PlayStation. But did I manage to get the platinum for it? Well, I'm not going to tell you. You should go and watch the VOD. It was a good stream, and it's an excellent game, so if you haven't played it yet and have been hesitating over it, go and see what you make of it. And Organauts, I'm trying to settle into a regular groove with streaming, so if you're interested, come find me on TikTok. I'm planning to go live every Saturday and every Sunday at 8 AM UK time. I will be posting the VODs to YouTube, so you can always catch them later. Now, I'm writing this part of the script before the weekend just gone, as it is for you, so I don't know what we ended up streaming, if indeed I did manage to stream. I was planning on streaming the 2 Oxenfree games, but there's a chance I went for something a bit less heavy instead. Well, anyway, if I did stream, it'll be up on YouTube by now, so you can tell me what I played. Off channel, I've been playing some Cities Skylines again, a game I've talked about many times in the past, and one that I keep coming back to because it's just so chill. I've also been dipping my toe into God of War Ragnarok here and there. I'll keep chipping away at it until it's done. I can't remember if I mentioned it last time out, but I've also been playing Dave the Diver. This is a fun little game where you go diving in a lagoon by day, hunting fish, and by night you serve those fish up to hungry patrons of your sushi restaurant. Additionally, there are mysteries to unravel as you pursue lost fragments of an almost forgotten underwater civilization of sea people. You can go at your own pace, which is nice, but there is a bit of challenge in getting as many orders out as possible, and in fleeing the odd shark here and there while you're submerged. Anyway, that's pretty much what I've been playing recently. I know what you were waiting for, so listen to this little jingle, and I'll open up the Retro Arcade. Come on in and gather round, for today I want to tell you about this, one of my favourite arcade games, and indeed one of my favourite games. Developed and published by Namco for arcades all the way back in 1995, I am of course talking about Time Crisis. Time Crisis is a rail shooter that uses the light gun peripheral. The arcade version has a pedal that players use to indicate when they want to get into cover to reload, and when they want to spring out to start attacking the enemies again. As a kid, I think the light gun I got with the game, the Logic 3 Predator 2, came with a pedal for that arcade experience, or you could press and hold a button on the side of the light gun to switch in and out of cover. What does the term rail shooter mean then? For anyone not familiar, these are games where all you need to do is take aim and pull the trigger. The player character will follow a set path through the map, so you don't need to worry about moving them. It's my favourite genre of video game, and as many people listening at home already know, it's the inspiration behind my channel name, and the name of the podcast. In Time Crisis, you have a limited amount of time to clear each area of enemies, but you will also want to make sure you're using cover at the right moments too, because bad guys do shoot back, and you need to watch your health. I was too young to be visiting arcades to play Time Crisis there, but in 1997 a home console port was developed for the Sony PlayStation, and of course I had it in my collection, and still do to this day in fact. I don't therefore know if this was the case on the arcade cabinets. I suspect not, but on the PS1 there were 2 game modes you could play. There's the main arcade storyline, where Shirudo Garo has kidnapped Rachel, daughter of the president of Cercia. I think Shirudo Garo was the last of the old royal bloodline that lost its power when the Republic was set up. He's enlisted the services of mercenary Wild Dog to help him regain absolute power over the small island nation, and they've taken Rachel hostage until their demands are met. Step up VSSE agent Richard Miller, a one-man army equipped only with his trusty handgun. You infiltrate Garo's fortress and fight hordes of enemies, all wielding much greater firepower than you, but ultimately you face Wild Dog in a one-on-one gun battle to save Rachel and democracy in Cercia. In the other storyline, which I've confirmed was only available for the PlayStation port of the game, Richard Miller is sent to a Circean hotel which has been found to be a front for an illegal weapons factory. I always really liked this plotline because you really do feel like a James Bond-esque secret agent blasting your way in through the lobby and uncovering the hotel's secrets. I wasn't an immediate fan of Time Crisis when I first played it as a child, which I find unfathomable now, but the game really grew on me, and it wasn't long before I started to hold it in much higher regard. Playing with the light gun peripheral seriously added to the immersion, and I will say trying to play with a normal controller is very challenging, as the cursor very slowly pans across the screen, which is obviously not ideal when you're playing against the clock. But light guns are only compatible with CRT TVs and don't work with modern flat screens. Thankfully, I do have a small box telly, but I'd ideally like to play on a bigger screen again one day. If I can ever find a working 32-inch CRT, that would be the dream. Alternatively, I do have the Sinden light guns that do work on flat screen TVs, but I need a Raspberry Pi adapter to be able to set them up with my consoles. That would probably be the best way to go. I just need to find someone who's already built said adapter, because I've read the instructions on what to do, and they unfortunately went way over my head. That's a concern for me to figure out though. I fear we run the risk of heading wildly off topic here, so I'll bring us back to the game, and what I think of it. For me, Time Crisis is a genuine classic, and is almost solely responsible for making me fall in love with light gun games, and particularly rail shooters. Admittedly, House of the Dead played a part in that too, but we'll save that for another day. Time Crisis is my favourite rail shooter, my favourite game with a light gun peripheral, and ranks in my top 10 favourite video games I've ever played. Sure, I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but I still play it to this day and can confirm that, with the light gun peripheral, it plays really well and is excellent fun. It's a game I can see myself playing right up until I'm not playing video games anymore. But before we start to dwell on that thought, I would highly recommend anyone to play Time Crisis with the light gun, if you ever get the chance. Well, I should get locked up here. I don't have any real gaming news to speak of, but there are a couple of new games I want to talk about, which sort of fit the bill. So, I'll run the music, and we'll talk about them for a bit. Now, I think at the time this podcast airs, both of these games have probably released. The truth behind why I'm running this segment this week is because of the new tune I have for gaming news, which I first included in the last episode, and I'm a tad proud of it. But now that we're here, I'd best talk about some games. First up is Monster Hunter Wilds, and you'll know that I've talked about this series before. In fact, last year I was teaming up with some friends through Switch Online in Monster Hunter Rise, but Wilds is the new game, and I don't think it's available on Switch. But you can play on Xbox, PlayStation and PC, and the neat thing about this title is that it's cross-platform, so you can play with friends on Xbox, even if you're on the PlayStation. I understand wire bugs have gone from this game. These were used to zipline around the map in Monster Hunter Rise, and allowed you quicker access between areas. Instead, in Wilds, you have a new mount to race around the map on, so it'll be interesting to see how that compares. And of course, the other game that released this week is 2 Point Museum. I've been really looking forward to this game's release since I learned of its development last year. I played bits of 2 Point Hospital, which was a kind of spiritual remake of Theme Hospital, a game I played a lot of over the years. I really got into 2 Point Campus though, and have sunk a fair amount of time into that one. Now, I haven't had a chance to play 2 Point Museum at the time of writing this, and I've been desperately trying to avoid any spoilers for it, so I can come to the new mechanics totally fresh, but I have been very eagerly looking forward to getting my hands on it and seeing what it's all about. Tell me then, have you been looking forward to either of these games? Have you had them on pre-order? And, if you've now played one or t'other, what do you think of it? I'd love to hear your views, and you can write to offrailgamer@gmail.com to let me know. The email address is in the podcast episode description, and you know the rules. Keep it clean. Don't be mean. With no gaming news to speak of then, I suppose we should get on to the main part of the show. You wait here, and I'll think of something to talk about while the music plays. This week I'm going to take us back to episode 1, in a sense. Only instead of talking about the games we had when I was wee, I want to talk about some of the games that I've picked up for my Master System collection that I'm really rather fond of. First up is a game I hadn't heard of until I started collecting as a big grown-up lad. It's a kid's game, but let me tell you, it's good fun, and I don't care what anyone says. You'll almost certainly know what game I'm going to say when I tell you it's the sequel to Bubble Bobble. In Rainbow Islands, you play as this little dude who can shoot rainbows, which are deadly to the game's antagonists. What's weird is when you attack a bad guy with your rainbows, they, the bad guys this is, turn into food, such as a variety of fruits or slices of cake, etc. The rainbows remain rainbows. You can collect the foodified villains to earn points towards your new high score. The aim of Rainbow Islands is to climb to the top of the screen, reaching gates between each stage of the level. You can jump from platform to platform, but some will be out of reach. Thankfully, you can climb on your rainbows, making those hard-to-reach platforms accessible. When you reach the end of a level, passing through, I think, 5 gates, you get a boss fight. All you have to do is avoid their attacks and hit them with your rainbows the desired number of times. It kind of puts me in mind of Pocket Bomberman, a game I had on the Game Boy Color. No, you. Come on, Nintendo. Since I was but a schoolboy. But that's a different game, and a different console altogether. So let's turn back to Sega, shall we? I have this next game on both Master System and I think Mega Drive too. Just keep in mind I'm talking about the Master System version then, please. In Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, you play as Disney's iconic Mickey Mouse. Would you believe it? Minnie Mouse has been kidnapped by a wicked witch named Mizrabel, which sounds remarkably like miserable if you say it right. And that makes sense, because kidnapping is a totally miserable thing to do to someone. Mickey platforms his way through a series of 2D levels looking for 7 gems that he can ultimately use to save Minnie. Castle of Illusion is a fun platformer, but bear in mind it was released at a time when almost every game was the Dark Souls of gaming. What I'm saying is, it's not easy, even if you were expecting it to be a kids' game again, given it's our friend Mickey. Rampart is an interesting game. The box describes it as a strategy puzzle game, but it's not a million miles off being a sort of tower defense. I think it might be difficult to describe, so I'll have to make sure to make a video for YouTube and TikTok. Note to self. Hopefully, I'll have been proactive and that will already be up for you to go and have a look at. Anyway, in Rampart, you first build a castle fortification and then place cannons that will hopefully fend off waves of enemies. Hence I consider it a kind of tower defense-ish game in nature. You get a nice variety of maps and enemies. You could be battling it out with a neighbouring castle, or you could be seeing off some ships at sea. I'm terrible at Rampart, but it's still fun to play. Like I say, I'll pop it up on the channel at some point, if I haven't already, so you can understand what I failed to describe so miserable-y. Wait, that was the other game. You all know the game Lemmings, without me having to describe it to you. But I'm going to anyway, because that's kind of the whole deal with this podcast. Lemmings is another kind of puzzle game in which you must guide your lemmings to the level exit within the time allowed. For each level, you'll have a minimum number of lemmings that you must save to pass. In some levels, it's impossible to save them all, as you'll have to instruct some to become blockers, preventing the others from walking off ledges and swan diving to their demise. In other levels, you'll have to sacrifice some of your lemmings who will need to blow themselves up to break through certain obstacles. You can equip the little critters with shovels and pickaxes to dig to lower platforms, and if there's a large drop, you'll want to hand them an umbrella that they can use as a parachute, kind of Mary Poppins style. I grew up playing Lemmings on my Game Boy, but I'm very happy to be able to play it on my big telly now. It's a great game. God, here's a good one. I never played this as a kid, but one game I'm really happy to have in my Master System collection is Rampage. This is a game that we'll very likely cover in the Retro Marcade at some point, so I won't spend too much time on it now, but essentially the game puts you in your favourite monster movie. You can choose to play as Ralph the Wolf, George the Ape, or Lizzie the Lizard, but these are no average animals, they're supersized to say the least. As your preferred beast, you will smash buildings until their structural integrity is so weakened that they crumble to the floor. People will appear in windows and you can snatch them up and eat them. As the levels progress, the military are called out to deal with you. There are tanks you can jump on and helicopters you can swat out of the sky, but be quick to get them before they get you, or it will spell game over. Rampage is fantastic fun to play, and as I say, I'm really happy to have added it to my collection. I'm sure childhood me would have loved the carnage and destructiveness of this one. Disney's The Lion King is fantastically difficult, but one that I had to buy, seeing as I remember watching the game showcasing on multiple TV screens in PC World when I was very small. Admittedly, that was almost certainly the Mega Drive version, and I was in awe of the graphics and the animation. But the Master System version looks really good as well. It is tough as nails, as I said, but talking about it now is really making me want to put it on again. Maybe on a live stream when we finish Finding Nemo. That's what we're playing at the moment, not Oxenfree, to correct what I've been playing recently segment from earlier. And I think we've got time to talk about one more game then. When I was around 9 or so, I found the Asterix comic books in our school library and instantly became obsessed. By that time I was getting my PlayStation and got the Asterix and Obelix Take on Caesar movie tie-in game. I've talked about that before and how disappointed I was with it. But that's not what I want to talk about now, chiefly because it's on the wrong system for the topic of today's discussion. It was as an adult that I picked up Asterix for the Sega Master System, and I have to say, it's a really solid 2D side-scrolling action platformer. Druid Getafix has been kidnapped, and Asterix and Obelix set off to rescue him and bring him home. The game says 1 or 2 players, but 2-player mode means someone plays a level as Asterix, and then passes the controller to their friend to play as Obelix. It's a really good fun game though. And that's about it for this week. Thank you very much for listening, and if you did enjoy, please consider sharing it. Otherwise, until next time, bye!